Hey, this is Joe Begley here, back with another coding problem, and today I'm going to show you how to solve Sudoku boards using only JavaScript. Now, one of the tricks to this problem is to think about solving the Sudoku problem the same way that you would do it if you were to fill it out with pen and paper. And the trick here is applying that logic and making it work using code. You're going to use the same patterns that you would use solving this with pen and paper as you are in the code. You just need to translate it to JavaScript. So look at where I have this X boxed off. Let's look at that spot. So the way we're going to do this with code is we're going to look in and we're going to see what numbers are in the same row, what numbers are in the same column, and what numbers are in the same box. And then we're going to rule pieces out. So there's a 1 right there that's in the same column. There's a 2 in the same row. There's a 3 in that box. There's also a 4 in the box. There's a 5 in the column. There's a 6 in the row. There is a 7 in the row as well. There's an 8 in the column, and there's no 9. So therefore, this has to be a 9. So let's think about how that would work with code. You add pieces to the board, and then as you add them, you keep going and looking for more possibilities out on the board. Now that looks good to me. And this seems like a pretty good place to jump in and try to solve it with some actual code. So let's do that. So I have Sublime text up. We're going to start out by pasting in the puzzle that we're going to use. Now in this case, empty slots are represented by zeros and everything else is represented by numbers. So let's do this. We'll write a function called Sudoku solver, and it's going to take the puzzle as an argument. Great. So the first step I would say is to loop through and iterate through every single piece on the board, because we're going to check every piece. So I will say for var vertical, so we'll say var vert is equal to 0, vert less than puzzle.length, vert plus plus. Great, and then we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to say horizontal less than puzzle.length, horizontal plus plus. Great. And then just to make sure this works, let's do console.log puzzle vert horizontal. Great. So when we go and we execute this code, it should loop through an order, and you see down here those are the last few elements. It appears to have looped through them. So like we said, zeros are indicative of an empty space. So let's write some code that says do something if we find a 0. So if puzzle vert horizontal equals 0, let's execute this code. Great. So if it's equal to 0, we're going to execute some code. What I have in mind here is once we find that spot, we're going to check the whole row, then we're going to check the whole column, and then we are going to check the box. So let's do this. Let's start out with something that iterates through the numbers from 0 to 9. Var I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. And now we're going to need some sort of object to keep track of what available pieces we have. So let's say var non-possibilities is equal to an object. Great. Okay, so for the non-possibilities, if we find a number, let's add it to that list. So let's say puzzle vert horizontal. So we can just say if greater than 0, non-possibilities puzzle vert horizontal is equal to true. And we're going to reset this every single time we hit here. So let's say non-possibilities is equal to an empty object. Now, as you can see, the code is starting to get a lot of nested for loops, and that's not necessarily good, but in this case, I think this is actually the most efficient solution that I can come up with. So we're going to stick with it. So let's say, okay, in this case, we are checking everything in the row. So we've got the vertical column set. So if we hit this first 0, this code is going to go through, it's going to check everything in the row. It's going to say, okay, if there's a number there that's greater than 0, non-possibilities, we're going to set that number as the key in the non-possibilities hash, and we're going to set it equal to true. Now, we also need to do this for the columns, so let's do the same thing. If puzzle, oh, and that should be I. If puzzle I horizontal greater than 0, non-possibilities of that number is equal to true. Great. Okay, so those ones are a little complicated, but what's a little bit trickier is checking the box. So let's think about this. Let's break this down, this puzzle down into 9 quadrants, because that's what we have. Let's call this quadrant 0, 0. This is quadrant 0, 1. From here down to here. This is quadrant 0, 2, and so on and so forth. So 1, 0, 2, 2. Great, so we want to check all of those and do the same thing that we just did with the non-possibilities. So let's go ahead and we're going to have to write a different for loop. Again, this is going to need to be a nested for loop. So var vertbox. Okay, and then let's figure this out. Now bear with me for a second while I do this. Var vertbox is equal to vert math.floor vert divided by 3 times 3. Now some of you are saying, what is that? Why did you just do that? Allow me to explain for a second. So let's say we are over here. Let's say we're solving for this one. Okay, so we want to check everything in this box. So for vertical, we want to check everything in rows 6, 7, and 8. Remember, because indexes start with 0. So how do we do that? We start with math.floor vert. Now in this case, vert is equal to 6. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. We take the floor of that, which is 2 again, and we multiply it by 3, which is 6. And now we can go 6, 7, 8. Same with here. If we were to do this one, that's a 7. So 7 divided by 3 is 2 1/3. The floor of that, which just basically that just takes anything that's a decimal and rounds it down no matter what. So that's a 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm going to say vertbox less than this plus 3. Now again, some of you are going, what are you doing here? Why didn't you just do vertbox less than vertbox plus 3? Well, that would result in an infinite loop, because every single time we're saying, okay, vert box less than vert box plus 3, but it's incrementing itself, so it'll never get there. And we need to do the same thing for the horizontal pieces. Great. Let's see how it looks. Let's go non-possibilities. So, if puzzle, vert box, horizontal box, non-possibilities of that number is equal to true. All right. So that was a little confusing, I'm sure, but I will do a console.log just to sort of explain what's going on here for a second. Now this might not work. I might have written some bugs into the code. I hope not. It would be cool if I got away with it the first time, but let's do this. Just as I suspected, I have put in a bug. Okay. Cannot read property 2 of undefined. I is equal to 0. I less than 10. It should be I less than 9. Great. Okay, this looks good. But let's take a look. Okay, so this will be for the first 0. So pieces that should be ruled out. A 1 is not ruled out. A 2 is not ruled out because it's not in the box, the column, or the row, but a 3 should be ruled out. So let's see. Is 3 in there? Yes. 4 shouldn't be ruled out, but 5 should be. Yes. 6. 6 should be ruled out because it's in the same box. 7 should be ruled out, 8 should be ruled out, and 9 should be ruled out. Great, so it actually worked. Now, what do we do next? That's a tricky question. What do we do next? So we're going to want to fill in some pieces now. But how do we know which ones to fill in? Well, the ones that we're going to fill in are going to be the ones that have 8 values in here. Because if there's 8 values in their hash or in their object, that means that there's only one possibility for that slot. So let's go. Let's do it. We're going to say if, this is object.keys, non-possibilities, and we'll just declare this as, again, we'll declare another variable, impossible numbers. Impossible numbers is equal to, great. So that's an array with all the unique possibilities, all the unique non-possibilities for that row. So we're going to say if impossible numbers dot length is equal to 8. Now why 8? Because 8's one less than 9, so that means there's only one possibility. We are going to fill it in. So again, I hate to use another for loop here, but I feel that it's our best option. So for var I is equal to 1, I less than 10, so that's going to print every number from 1 to 9. If impossible numbers dot index of I is less than 0, we're going to fill it in. Now, some of you are wondering what I just did with index of. The way that works is, okay, so let's say we're looking for the number 1 in there. If it's in there, it will return the index of it. If it's not in there, it'll return -1. One thing that we're doing too, though, is this is going to be an array of numbers as strings, so we're going to need to turn this into a string. So let's just do string I. Another option, which is sort of hacky syntax, but I like it. This is the way I prefer to do it. Just add an empty string to it, and it converts it to a string. I know. So if that, we're going to fill it in. We're going to say that impossible number. We're going to fill in the matrix. So we're going to say puzzle vert horizontal is equal to I. Let's try it. And then at the end of this, we need to return the new puzzle. Okay, let's give it a shot and see what happens. Oh, did something wrong again. I'm guessing it has to do with my use of, yep, it has to do with my use of parentheses. Wow, I don't know why it was so hard for me to get that word out of my mouth. Great, so let's check this. Okay, so it filled in something. Let's see where it filled in, just so we know. So we know where it's going to go down. Let's console.log vert horizontal, just so we know the indexes at which we filled it in. Oh, whoa. Why is this executing over and over again? So I was doing the index of I.toString less than 0. I put the less than 0 in the wrong spot. Which is hilarious. Okay, let's see if it works. Awesome. It appears that it does. Okay, let's take another look at this. And let's see how the puzzle comes back. Okay, yeah, and we are also going to want console.log vert horizontal. Okay, so 4, 4 is the first index, which is the 5th. Okay, so that's a 5. Let's take a look at this. Let's just pretend it was a 0. So, can we get a 1 in there? No, because it's in the same row. Can we get a 2? No. Can we get a 3? No. Can we get a 4? No. Can we get a 5? Yes. Can we get a 6? No. Can we get a 7? No. Can we get an 8? No. Can we get a 9? No. That works. Okay. Why isn't the whole puzzle filled out? Let's think about this together. So the puzzle isn't filled out because we're only taking one lap through. And as anyone who's ever played Sudoku knows, you're not going to get it the first time you go through the puzzle. You need to fill out pieces and then use that information to solve the other pieces. So let's think about this. We're still going to return the puzzle. But let's put in a while loop. And we're going to set it equal to empty spaces. And for now, we're just going to set it equal to true, but we're going to change, let's just set it to 81. We're going to change the value of this the second we get into the loop. So we just need it to be equal to something so it will initiate the loop. You'll see what I mean in a second. While empty spaces is greater than 0, keep this loop running. Okay, great. And then every single time we find an empty space, we are going to increment this value. So let's set empty spaces to 0 at the beginning of each loop, and then every single time we find an empty space and don't fill it in, let's increment it. Okay, so this is where we increment it. I'm saying if it's equal to 8, let's say if the length of empty impossible numbers is equal to 8, and we fill it in. We'll fill it in, otherwise we are going to increment the number of empty spaces. And let's see. We filled it in. This is a correct solution, it looks like to me. So great, that is how you fill in a Sudoku puzzle using only JavaScript. I know that is a bit of a confusing problem, and I'm sure there were some more complicated concepts that I skipped over in the middle. Please write me a comment or leave me a note saying what you think I could have done better. I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. Bye.